Good morning, everyone. We'll wait just a minute or so while everyone gets logged into Zoom for the webinar. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar on COVID-19 guidance for early learning and care contractors. This webinar is being presented by the California Department of Education's Early Learning and Care Division and Fiscal and Administrative Services Division. This webinar is being held on June 4th, 2021, and is scheduled to run from 10 a.m. until 11 a.m. And with that, I'd like to welcome the Director of Early Learning and Care Division, Stephen Proctor.
Thank you, Eric. Welcome, everyone, and we're glad you've decided to take some time out of your day to join us this week. As Eric mentioned, I'm Stephen Proctor. I'm the Director of the Early Learning and Care Division at the California Department of Education. During this last week, we saw the legislature's aligned response to the governor's proposed investments in universal transitional kindergarten. I know we've said this before, we'll continue to say it, but we want to assure you all that we will continue to work to ensure that any expansion of TK is developmentally appropriate. And we will work with the field to mitigate adverse impacts to state preschool and as well as partners in Head Start. I'd also be remiss if in saying there's other items in the budget kind of around this that we saw from the legislature, but I'm going to save that for later in our webinar. I do want to thank you all for everything that you continue to do as we look at a winding down of the year. We're certainly not out of the pandemic, but you all have done and continue to do so much to support children and families in California. We know this is a labor of love, and it has not been easy. But we want to thank you for everything that you've done, and I know that we can't wait until we're back to normal. And speaking of not exactly back to normal, but perhaps a new normal, as we are working towards July 1, and we've got this transition to many programs to the Department of Social Services. We're continuing to work closely with CDSS on solutions for short and long-term issues, and we'll continue to update you with that work as we work towards more permanent solutions. And I think I'll stop here and I'll ask Virginia to join.
Thanks, Steve, and good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm Virginia Early, the Administrator of the Policy Office in the Early Learning and Care Division. Thank you so much for being here and for all of your engagement with us and in the policy process. We definitely cannot do this work without you, and everything that you do every day inspires us with our work. I'll talk more later, but for now, know that we're so happy you're here, and I'll turn it over to Alana, our moderator.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alana Andrade, and I'm a child development consultant in the policy office here at ELCD, and I'll be your moderator today. To help answer your questions and to make this webinar just run smoothly, we've got a great team with us. Also from the policy office, we have Danielle Davis and Eric Dunk. From the Program Quality Implementation, PQI office, we have Roseanne Pitts, Mignon Pollard, Deborah Rawson, Lupe Lopez, Cassandra Lewis, Brittany Sheffield, Mitchell Martinez, Richard Miller, Serene Yee, and Katina Boulay. From the Child Development, Nutrition, and Fiscal Services Division, we've got CDNFS. We've got Andrea Johnson, Alan Lynch, and Kate Washington. From the Child Development Management Information System, CDMIS, we have Robert Hom and Carly Nodahara. To answer any questions regarding nutrition or the food program, we have Leslie Shar from the Nutrition Division, and we're very happy to have her today. I also just want to mention our fabulous Technology Service Division, who ensure that our Zoom link is live and working each and every webinar. They also help ensure that the closed captioning is on. If you'd like to utilize that feature, just click on the little CC button on the bottom right of your screen. As always, our team is committed to being as responsive as possible. And as you know, we won't be able to answer every question. And just a reminder that the chat box is disabled. CDE will be able to share links with you there, but you are unable to chat with us through that. Please utilize the Q&A feature to ask us any questions. And while you're utilizing the Q&A feature, so far it's just been a lot of good mornings and we're very happy to see that. Do give us as much detail about your program before you click that submit button. For example, which contract, age of students, more information means that we can better answer your question. Back over to Stephen to review our agenda for today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alana. I always love hearing kind of the orchestra of all of the different individuals, areas, and teams that contribute to and make these webinars successful. So as you can see from the slide here, and as we normally do on our agenda, we've got many things that we'll cover. So we'll have our PQI team share some additional information on training and monitoring, as well as a very exciting reminder of some things to come here. Our policy team will provide an update on the 12-month eligibility regulations, where we are in the budget process, and then finally some pieces around the alignment of the legislature and the governor's proposals related to transitional kindergarten. Finally, our fiscal team has updates on family fees, emergency child care, and contracts. And of course, as usual, Alana mentioned the Q&A function is the best place to get your questions in. We'll be answering those in real time, as well as have some time at the end to answer questions. For any questions that we don't get to, we will take back for consideration and posting on our website as an FAQ. So before I do hand off to Virginia, I do want to acknowledge again this wonderful team that's on this webinar. It takes a village, and it's certainly no exception here. So thank you, everyone. And actually, I don't think I'm handing off to Virginia here. I think I said the wrong thing. I think it's PQI is up next, and I think it's Roseanne. So Roseanne.
Yes,
welcome.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. I'm Roseanne Pitts. I'm an administrator with the PQI office in charge of the central section of the state. Our Associate Director, Erica Otiano, is taking some much needed vacation, but she sends her appreciation and well wishes to all of you. As always, she continues to be involved with the field and your well-being. So she will be here for our event next week. A reminder that on June 9th, we're hosting an event called You Are Our Heroes, where we really want to celebrate the field. This event takes place from 10 to 11:30 on Wednesday, June 9th. Please join us. We would love to have you here. Just a quick update on monitoring. We have done quite a bit of monitoring this year. We have just a few more reviews, maybe 2 or 3 to end off our year. We appreciate everybody's patience as we have gotten through the virtual monitoring that has been a little bit different. We continue to be in discussions for the particulars moving forward to the 21-22 fiscal year. Our goal continues to be to reduce all of your administrative burden. So we are in constant communication and working together with the Department of Social Services to be able to do monitoring that looks very similar and conjoined when at all possible. Our trainings have concluded this year, but we do need your input for the 21-22 fiscal year. Please, if you have ideas of what kinds of trainings would be most beneficial to yourself and your staff, please send your ideas to your assigned field consultant. we'll be discussing ideas for training with all of the consultants before we plan our schedule for the upcoming year. As always, the pillars of PQI are training with technical assistance, monitoring, and program support. These will continue at both the California Department of Social Services as well as the California Department of Education. We look forward to continue to be available to all of you, be able to provide the training, the monitoring, and the support that you need to do your job. And we thank you, as always, for everything you do. And now I will hand it over to Virginia.
Thanks so much, Roseanne, and hello again, everybody. So as Steve mentioned, we wanted to talk to you a little bit about 12-month eligibility regulations. To let you know, we're so happy that the final 12-month regulations have been approved by the Office of Administrative Law, and they will go into effect on July 1st, 2021. So you can find the final version of these regulations on CDE's rulemaking page. And we'll be sending out an email to our distribution list later today to notify contractors about this, but wanted to give you a heads up. So we know that many of you are going to have a lot of questions about these regulations. And we're encouraging all of you to really deeply review these regulations in their entirety before submitting any questions to us. When you have questions, please direct them, any questions regarding the regulations, to our Title V inbox at elcdtitle5@cde.ca.gov. And this email box will be collating the questions that we get and adding, using them to develop for our upcoming frequently asked questions about the regulations. When you submit any questions to this email box, please also include your agency name, your region, and which contracts you're asking about. That way we can provide proper technical assistance to you and loop in your right consultant. So one other aspect is that these regulations apply to all programs that CDE currently administers, including those that are transitioning to the California Department of Social Services on July 1st. So wanting to note that for you as well. So on to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about where we are. Eric, can you move me to the next slide? Thanks. Talk about where we are in the 2021-22 budget process. So moving more quickly than in previous years, the Assembly and the Senate have announced a historic early agreement on their budget items. And so what's happening right now is that currently these negotiations are happening between the governor and the legislature. So now the legislature is required to pass a budget by June 15th. So we'll know in the next week or so what the final version of the budget is. At this point, we talked on a previous webinar about what's in the governor's May revision plan. The legislature has come out with a different plan. And so where we are in this process is the governor and the legislature working together to come up with a final plan that they're all agreeing to. So I will say that there are some encouraging proposals that we're seeing from the legislature and their plan that are not part of the governor's May revision plan. Those include a significant investment in rate reform, both to increase the rates and remove some of the inequities in the current rate system. Additional slots for the California State Preschool Program, increased investment in inclusion in programs like the Inclusive Early Education Expansion Program, and other investments for early learning and care. So we don't know for sure whether these will end up in the final version of the budget, but we wanted to flag some of these positive signs that we're seeing in the legislature's plan, because we know how much rate reform is needed, and these other aspects are so needed in the field. So we know that many of you are interested in the legislative actions as we move into our next slide. We know that many of you are interested in our legislative actions around universal transitional kindergarten. What did the legislature, what's in their plan for universal TK? So similar to what the governor had in the May revision, the legislature is supporting a large investment into universal TK. The proposals are slightly different from what the governor is proposing. So they're adopting a universal TK as part of a mixed delivery system, which would be phasing in expanded age eligibility with full implementation in 25-26. There are some other differences with the governor's plan. The legislature would require quality standards for TK, including full day instructional minutes and a 1-to-10 staff to student ratio, and would also allow California state preschool programs to provide before and after school and summer care for children enrolled in transitional kindergarten and kindergarten. And also language to clarify parent choice between a transitional kindergarten, state preschool, childcare, Head Start for those kids that are age eligible for TK. So again, we just want to emphasize this is the legislature's plan. The governor has released a different plan, and so as we move towards June 15th, when the legislature is required to pass a budget and send it to the governor, we'll get a sense of what that final agreement looks like. And please know that we're working very closely with the legislature, Department of Finance, and the governor's administration to support all of them as they work together to come to an agreement. So even though we don't have a final agreement yet, we at CDE are committed to working together with all of you, our contractors, and other partners such as Head Start to address any unintended consequences. And we talked about this a little bit at our last webinar, but just to reiterate here, this includes supporting you as you work to recruit eligible children to your programs, continuing our critical partnership with Head Start, because we want these investments to have a larger cumulative impact through more children having access to high quality early education experiences. We know that California is only serving a fraction of children eligible for the California State Preschool Program now. And we also know that, and same with Head Start, and we also know that mixed income programs have stronger and longer lasting positive child outcomes. So we're really hoping this historic investment will let the state serve many more of these children in high quality, developmentally appropriate settings. So I'm now going to pass it over to Deborah, who will talk through some transition related items.
Thank you, Virginia. Happy Friday, everyone. My name is Deborah Rawson. I'm a child development consultant with PQI, and I'm here to share a few things with you regarding the transition. So throughout the month of June, the CDE, ELCD, and the CDSS, CCDD will be issuing joint guidance to state subsidized early learning programs regarding the transition. Both agencies and their respective divisions understand that this transition has a substantial impact on early learning programs, and we are working collaboratively to mitigate administrative burden for contracts to the greatest extent possible. The funding terms and conditions have been posted to the CDE's webpage and can be found at https://www.cde.ca.gov/FG/AA CDE/FTC 2021.ASP. Both the CDE and CDSS programs will utilize these FTNCs in the fiscal year 21-22. The CDE and CDSS is also finalizing the contact information for regional child development consultant assignments. They will be posting that information to their respective websites during the month of June. In addition, communication will be forthcoming from your assigned ELCD PQI consultant regarding assignments for next fiscal year. As a reminder, if you have not already signed up to receive communications and information from the CDSS, you can sign up on their child care transition website at https://CDSS.ca.gov/info-resources/CDSS-program/child-care-transition. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kate Washington, who will have some fiscal updates.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Deborah. My name is Kate Washington, and I'm a manager in the Child Development and Nutrition Fiscal Services Office, or CDNFS, and I'll be providing a few fiscal and contract updates today. You may recall that $30 million was provided in December 2020 to cover the cost of waived family fees, and contractors received an augmentation for this purpose. We previously allocated additional funds to alternative payment providers who reported an increase in waived family fees. We are now processing a subsequent allocation to direct service contractors whose December allocation was not sufficient, and where the contractor cannot absorb the cost of waiving family fees in fiscal year 2020-2021. Again, the purpose of these allocations is to ensure that contractors are not absorbing the cost of waiving family fees. So CCTR, CSPP, and CMIG contractors may receive an augmentation in the coming weeks. There are about 50 contractors that will receive an augmentation. Contractors who receive an augmentation will also receive an email from their fiscal analyst the next week. Next slide, please. Thank you. So next we'll move into some updates on the fiscal year 2021-22 contracts. The CDE has emailed all initial fiscal year 21-22 contracts, both those that will be administered by CDE and those that will be administered by CDSS in the upcoming year. We strongly encourage contractors to sign their contracts using Adobe Digital Signature. The contract is set up for contractors to do so. You may electronically sign using the Adobe Digital Signature and email the contract back to the contracts office. Contracts may still be signed and mailed to CDE's contracts office if contracts are not able to be digitally signed. The CDE contracts office has also provided specific instruction for where to return CDE and CDSS contracts. Those instructions were provided in the same email as the contract and as an attachment. So please refer to those instructions to ensure your contract will be processed timely when you are returning that. Next slide, please. Thank you. So a new process we'd like to share with you all is a contract auto renewal process that we are in the process of implementing this year and will make effective for the next fiscal year. Many of you likely joined the CDSS contracts update webinar where they shared that they will also be implementing the same process. So while I cannot speak to CDSS processes, I can share that we will be implementing the auto renewal process in a similar fashion. For CDE, and specifically for the CSPP and CPKS programs, we intend to include language in the continued funding application, or CFA, that will spell out the process for auto renewals. CFAs are due to CDE in November of each year, so we will be working to refine this process over the next several months. The auto renewal process was something we identified to ease the administrative burden on contractors, as well as to process payments more quickly. The auto renewal will allow CDE to process payments shortly after July 1 each year without the requirements of the contractor needing to sign and return the contract. Also, to relieve administrative burden and process payments more quickly, the CDE will be implementing a new contract amendment process effective fiscal year 2021-22. On the 21-22 contract phase sheet, contractors may notice new language that speaks to an allocation letter. That allocation letter, which required approval by the Department of Finance and Department of General Services, allows us to amend contracts without signature by the contractor. CDE will implement this new process by processing certain types of contract amendments without a contractor's signature. This will include amendments such as those that are required by law and enacted in the budget, such as cost of living or COLA adjustments. Some types of contract amendments will still require a signature, but we will make it very clear to the contractor whether or not a signature is required. Additionally, and regardless of whether or not the contractor is required to sign any particular amendment, we will continue to provide the contract phase sheet and encumbrance information in the same format we currently do. Again, when contract amendments are emailed, the CDE will make clear when the amendment to the contract must be signed and returned, and when it will be processed as an allocation letter. Additional information on this process is forthcoming. Next slide, please. Thank you. And lastly, we wanted to make sure you are all aware of the information that is provided on the CDNFS webpage. Andrea will drop a link into the Zoom chat shortly so that you can have easy access to our webpage. Some of the updates on our webpage include previously distributed fiscal guidance, which we released via the Early Learning and Care Division's email distribution list. You will also find current year contract changes, such as the contract changes we just discussed for fiscal year 2021-22. Deborah also shared that the funding terms and conditions for fiscal year 21-22, as well as program requirements for CDE contracts, were posted to our webpage. Please note that while funding terms apply to both CDE and CDSS contract types, program requirements are specific to each program type. Therefore, you will find funding terms for CDE and CDSS contract types within the same document on our webpage, and you will find separate links for CSPP and CPKS program requirements on the same webpage. And that concludes my portion. I'll turn it back over to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kate. Thank you everyone who's been presenting already. Thank you everyone who's been utilizing our Q&A feature. We only have a few open. That makes me very happy. Let's see. There was a question earlier regarding the income eligibility MB that our management bulletin that usually happens once a year. Can I ask that Virginia unmute herself to answer that out loud, please?
Yes, so there will be a new revised management bulletin with updated income ceilings, and we currently have that under development and hope to release it soon.
Okay, thank you. There are a few questions in here about contracts that perhaps they've only received one contract or they haven't received all of the contracts, and who should they reach out to? Can I ask Kate to unmute herself? I know she's also answering a question in the Q&A.
Sure,
if there's a
I did start to. Oh, go ahead.
No,
I did
go
start
ahead.
to answer that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a general answer to that question. The answer would depend on that specific contract. There could be a variety of reasons why that particular contract has not been received yet. So what I would say is to reach out to your fiscal analyst and have them start the conversation with the contracts office to determine where that contract is within the process.
Excellent, thank you. Okay. And Kate, can you also answer quite quickly when are the contracts signatures due? There are a few questions about I've received it, when are they due?
So the contractor can sign and return that at any time. Depending on when they sign and return it, they would want to look at the phase sheet to determine who they send that back to, because there's a period of time where CDSS contracts will no longer be sent to CDE, but will be returned back to CDE or CDSS, excuse me. So you'd want to make sure you look at your phase sheet to determine that. But there is no due date per se. You just want to sign and return that as soon as possible because we cannot make the initial apportionment payment to your agency until you sign and return that, and that is pay flagged.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to ask Virginia to unmute herself. So there are a few questions about will CDE or DSS providing some program equality and requirements for the next year and what those might look like? And when will we know?
I'd like to ask, let's see, who do we have here? Andrew, are you able to speak to that?
So sorry, Alana, I was responding in the chat and I didn't hear the question. Can you repeat it?
Sure. Will CDE or DSS provide program requirements for the CCTR and CMIG in the near future, or when that would be?
Got it. So I can't speak for exactly when they will provide those, but we have been working with DSS on that. We understand that their webpage currently is pointing back to the CDE webpage, specifically for the funding terms and conditions of the contract. And as we just shared, that those the funding terms and conditions speak to all contract types, and that's why we're essentially sharing that document for the CSPP and the other program types. But the program requirements are specific to the program. So on CDE's webpage, you'll only find the preschool and then the preschool support program. But we are working with DSS so that they can get that information up for their programs, which I believe will be posted on their webpage. Well, they will be posted on their webpage. I just don't know exactly the time frame, but they are working on it. I can confirm that.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrea. So Virginia, I'd like to ask you to unmute. There are a few questions about, do we have any more information about waived family fees for the next fiscal year?
Waived family fees for the next fiscal year. So at this point, the union agreement that was passed and signed between the legislature and the administration included waived family fees. So I think at this point, what we're doing is we're waiting for the actual bill language and the trailer bill language to see exactly how that would be implemented. And then once we see that, we'll be working together with DSS to release guidance.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask, I'll say either Roseanne or Deborah to unmute. There is a question regarding, are we required to have daily signature on those sign in and out attendance sheets for our direct service contracts?
If children are attending in-person services, that is both a licensing requirement as well as a Title V requirement. So signatures are required on those sign in and out sheets.
Okay, so I'm looking for some open questions. Our team has been very good at answering them, so therefore there are less open questions for me to tap into. Let's see. There is a question about expansion funds for the CSPP program and when those become available. I'm going to assume this is an Andrea question. If not, please call on the person that would actually be better to answer it. So the question itself is, the expansion of CSPP funds become available, or do you have to resubmit? Perhaps it could be Virginia, because Virginia does know a lot.
Thanks, Alana. I'll start, and then Andrea, if there's anything you want to add on, please do. So this is, I feel like, everything on the slide about the legislature's plan for the budget needs to have a giant pending stamp on it, because at this point in the budget process, the governor has come out with what he thinks the budget should be. The legislature has said what they think the budget should be. Anything that becomes the budget needs to be passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. So they need to get to a point where they're agreeing. So right now, additional slots for the California State Preschool Program are in the legislature's budget plan. We don't know whether that will be in the final budget agreement that the legislature and the governor make together. We also don't have specific language about if it does end up in the agreement, how it will be implemented. And so really, anytime that CDE is working to implement anything, it really has to look at the language in law. Does the language in law say, for example, CDE, look at people that, have applied before and reuse those applications? Or does it say, language that would require us to do a new application? And whenever we do anything at CDE, it's always driven by what the statute says. So really, there are two reasons that we don't have an answer to this. Number one, we don't know whether more funds for state preschool will be in the final budget. And then the second thing is, even when we look at the legislature's plan, we haven't seen specific language about how they're directing us to implement it or how they want to be directing us to implement it. So that's all to say, if you have opinions on how this should go, please be sharing those with your elected representatives, the budget committees, and the governor and the administration, so that your voice can be heard as they make these final decisions as we move toward a final budget.
Virginia, just for the benefit of this one question, and it could be very helpful for everybody, the budget will be signed on June 15th and enacted on July 1st?
The legislature is required to send the governor a budget by June 15th. So he has until July 1st to sign it. But if the legislature doesn't send the governor a budget by June 15th, then they don't get paid. So there's a pretty strong incentive for that timeline to be followed. Now, sometimes, generally what the legislature tries to do is it tries to get agreement with the governor before they pass something so that the governor will sign it more quickly. So generally, that's what it is. And there is a 3-day in print rule, so the bill would have to be in print for 3 days before June 15th. So we're getting to the end of the process here. So that's all to say, like I was sharing, if there are thoughts that you think are important for the legislature and the governor to consider as part of this, we do urge you to be working with them and elevating those pieces, because we are getting pretty close to the end of this process.
Excellent, thank you. I'd like to call on Deborah to elaborate a bit. After you spoke about the signatures, there were some folks who were piping in about electronic signatures and electronic enrollments and digital signatures. Can you speak to those, that if those are allowable?
Yes, those are allowable. And I would refer you, if you aren't currently using and you're interested in possibly looking into that process, to make sure that you read through Management Bulletin 1601, and it provides the details and the requirements of digital signatures, and what is allowable when using that type of process for sign in and out sheets. So.
Thank you for that clarification. Let's see. We've talked about digital signatures. So overarching, there's a few questions having to do with what the guidance will be for reimbursement in the next fiscal year. Can I ask either Virginia or Andrea to speak about whether or not we have that guidance yet, or when are we going to anticipate that guidance to be released?
All right, I guess it's me. Unless, Andrew, are you trying to talk? Are you on mute?
I can respond, Virginia.
Yeah, okay.
So this is also, I think, a similar response as what Virginia has been sharing, that we are waiting for an enacted budget in trailer bill language so that we can see what is there and if the policy has been extended regarding the reimbursement based off of enrollment and not attendance. So that is also still more to come on that.
So there are some questions that are now coming into the chat regarding guidance coming in from the California Health Department versus guidance coming in from CDSS versus guidance coming in from CDE about cohorts and about ratios. I will just give an overarching statement and someone can come in and support if need be, that if there are guidance that are released from them, then therefore you will have to go to their web pages to figure out that guidance. If there are secondary questions, you can always reach out to your regional PQI consultant to help weigh in and understand what all those guidances are. Let's see. There is another question about signatures. I'd like to call Deborah Rosson back. The question is regarding collecting signatures if they are distance learning or virtual learners.
No, signatures at this time are not required for to be documented on an attendance sheet. I know a lot of agencies are in their own form of which children are participating in Zoom calls and whatnot, but it's not required that that daily attendance be documented in the same way as if they were attending in-person services.
Okay, thank you, Deborah. There's also some questions about if a contractor should be charging parent fees in July. I'm going to ask if that is Virginia or Andrea. Normally I should be using the name first and then the question. Somehow I'm wanting to be questioning first and then the name second.
No worries, no worries. So yeah, we completely understand, you know, we're seeing a lot of questions in this chat about what do we do? Because so many of the things that we need to know July 1st, that there isn't actually a state law or a state decision on. And so what are we supposed to do? In terms of family fees, it is in the signed agreement with the governor and the Child Care Providers Union, which seems to be incorporated in the legislature's plan. So at this point, we would recommend holding off on collecting family fees until, you know, for another week. And then we'll be giving quick guidance through our email listserv on some quick items like family fees. If there's something, whether you need to start collecting them or whether they'll continue to be waived and what that waive will look like. So I think for now, just hold off a week on collecting those. Last thing we want is you to do all the work of collecting family fees and then have the bill go into print and get signed and say, oh, by the way, don't collect any and refund any that you did. So if it turns out that there is some nuance that would require collection of family fees, then you can collect them at that time, and we'll do that as well. So we'll be releasing more to come on that.
Thank you, Virginia. I would like to call on Roseanne to answer this question. There is a question in here about how far in advance contractors or providers, how far in advance will they know when their audit or review would be taking place for the next fiscal year?
Yes, thank you, Lana. Generally, at the beginning of a fiscal year, probably because of the transition and all, it will probably happen in September. I'm guessing September, October, where we'll send out information to everyone who has been selected for a review during the year. And then we send out information 60 days in advance of your particular dates. Generally, when we send your original notification that you will have a review this year, we also provide a variety of trainings so that we can prepare agencies for the review ahead. And most times we do also give you the proposed date at that time. So hopefully it will come fairly early in the year. We usually start by doing reviews, like follow-up reviews first before we do the new reviews. Of course, if you are a school district, an LEA, and you are on the FPM schedule, I think you may already know if you're having an upcoming review. So we will try to let you know, though, as soon as possible, once we have a schedule in place.
Thank you very much for that response, Roseanne. Virginia, I'd like to call on you again. There's a lot of questions, and I know you've answered this a few different times, and I know Andrea has sort of answered this a few different times, but I think it's bearing repeating that a lot of the questions are asking about what will hold harmless happen again in the next fiscal year, and why are we not answering the question?
I totally understand that this is incredibly frustrating. I think all of us PD would like to be able to definitively give guidance on this. So here's why we are here's what we know, and here's when we'll know more. So we know that the governor and the Child Care Providers Union negotiated an agreement from April. We can put the link to that in the chat if you like. That basically said that there's a hold harmless. Now that agreement has to be voted on by the legislature to become effective. We also know that the governor proposed in his May revision to his original budget proposal that there would be a hold harmless for all programs. Again, we have not seen the actual bill language for that yet. And so the challenge that we're running up against here is that the legislature has until June 15th to pass a budget, and some of that language has not been, shared or is still under development. And then the governor has until July 1st to sign, but you all need to start implementing July 1st. So I think part of the challenge is that, we're looking at things like family fees, for example, and all indicators that we have make it look like they are probably going to be waived. But we can't tell you that they for sure are waived, because for them to be waived will require a law to pass and be signed that has not passed and has not been signed. So that's true for the hold harmless piece, and that's true for the family fees. On the family fees piece, if you can hold off on collecting, that way, if they are waived, you don't have to go through a cumbersome reimbursement process to families. And so that's kind of where I was coming from there. We know that this is a tricky time and challenging for you all, and we fully recognize that. I know all of our consultants recognize that when they're working with you. And so we want to be working together with you to navigate this challenging timing situation, and release information and guidance to you as soon as we have it.
Thank you again for repeating that. It is a very frustrating and confusing spot to be in. I would like to call Deborah Rawson back to speak again about the signatures, especially about the MB that was quoted.
My apologies, I had quoted the wrong management bulletin. The first management bulletin 1601 is relevant only to AP contractors. And so management bulletin 1704 a year later was released for all contractors and being able to use digital signatures. So again, if you have not implemented it and you are interested in doing so, I would take a look at Management Bulletin 1704 and Management Bulletin 1703. They go hand in hand with one another.
Thank you very much for that. Perhaps we can try to get either you, Deborah, or Brittany to put those management bulletin links in our chat so they're quicker to navigate to. And we're coming to a close. Let's see a few more questions that we can answer. Actually, our chat has been very helpful. There's been a lot of folks who've been using our Q&A feature to share what they've been doing in their digital signatures and what programs they've been doing. And we just really appreciate the field that's here to help others in the field as well. Let's see. Looks like there are others who are also responding in the chat. I don't want to interrupt them. Let's see.
Alana, I'm wondering if I should answer one of the questions about parent choice for TK that I answered in the chat, but maybe useful for others. So one person asked, I had spoken in my presentation about that the legislature's version of the budget, and knowing this is still a proposal that's not final, had some pieces around wanting there to be parental choice. And so the person had asked, what does that mean? What is parental choice? And obviously we don't know what's going to be in the final agreement because this is different from what the governor has proposed, but wanted to further explain this is one area where we don't fully have the language yet because I feel almost like a broken record today. We're eagerly awaiting the bill that will make the budget pass as much as all of you are. And so we can't say exactly what that plan looks like from the legislature, but based on our understanding, it looks like the legislature's goal is to allow children that are eligible for TK to also be enrolled in state preschool, enrolled in Head Start, enrolled in other early learning and care programs. So again, we'll know more, and as soon as the budget passes, we're going to be releasing a number of guidance aspects. So know that will be coming, but just wanted to answer that question a little bit more about what that means.
Excellent. Okay. So while our team is continuing to answer things in the Q&A feature, and if we see something else that's popping up, and then we'll of course say it out loud, but I want to let the team spend a few last minutes of this webinar typing answers to you of those open questions that are there. And then I will serenade you with some links while that's happening. Eric, can you please move to the next slide? Thank you. So the ELCD COVID-19 guidance webpage is where you can find the webinar slides and transcriptions, our management bulletins, frequently answered questions, and that can be located at https://www.cde.gov/SP//RE//CD/COVID-19.ASP. And do be mindful that there's not an extra period there, or else it will take you to a web page not found. You can always submit questions to the ELCD emergency inbox at elcdemergency@cde.ca.gov. To find your assigned PQI office regional consultant, please visit https://www.cde.ca.gov/sp/ci/assignments.asp. Once again, do be mindful that there's not an extra period or else the web page will show not found. As always, consultants are most easily reached by email. However, you can also call 916-322-6233 during business hours, where you can reach the consultant of the day. And I would like to call on Virginia, who I know is typing furiously, to help close out our webinar.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And so I'm actually going to go back to one question on family fees. Someone had, Joanna had shared that she's already collected family fees for July. We are not telling you to refund them. We don't know enough to be able to tell you at this point whether they should be refunded. So don't refund anything. If you haven't collected family fees yet, we're just saying maybe wait a week and see if you're going to be told to collect them or if they're waived, so that you don't create extra work. So hopefully, Joanna, you're still on and you heard that piece. And so now I'll just bring this to a close on behalf of everyone here at CDE, every one of you that continues to work with children, families, our early education professionals. We want to just thank you from the bottom of our hearts from taking time out of your day to listen to this morning's webinar. And we hope you join us for the next webinar in a couple weeks. Depending on what the budget, what happens in the budget, we're going to have a lot more guidance coming out, and we will continue these webinars to best support the field. So keep looking for more information on that. And so now, thank you. Please take care, be safe, be kind. We can't do this without you. And so we just want to honor and appreciate everything that you're doing. We will see you next time.
We do have just a few minutes. I'm not going to raise a question out loud, but I am going to allow the team to finish answering your questions so that it doesn't pause in the middle.